is present via telephone. Honorable Councilmember Corey Reeves.
Account for.
Honorable Councilmember Khalid.
Present.
Honorable Councilmember Mark Baker. Mr. Mayor, you do have a quorum.
Okay, would you first call the first agenda item, please?
First agenda item, item 1, city's response to coronavirus and authorization of expenditures. City manager.
City manager, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, Mayor, thank you for calling this special call meeting. I think the purpose of today is to give you an update. So I think the purpose of today is to give you an update on the activities that we've taken for Corona, but also to ask you for the authority to move forward with some additional precautions, and also to advise you of the administrative activities, $50,000 spend for our initial response. I would imagine that it is going to grow from that. I did want to highlight how those $50,000 would be utilized, because it's in the intent to protect the public and our employees. And as I speak on that, it's very important to protect our employees immediately, because otherwise, if they are not protected and they are not able to respond to any incidents that occur, then we're putting the public at risk. And so what we have done already, and we will need the authority to use that $50,000 to make sure we balance the budget. Fire has ordered 150,000 PPE kits to provide the full body protection to our first responders. It's a cost of about $22 per, so it adds up to about $3,300. We've done the same amount for our police. We've ordered a total of 500 of those protective pieces of equipment, so that we can continue to operate in City Hall and respond to any emergencies. We've also planned to order 2 aeroclave machines which decontaminize any of our units, our buildings, and our vehicles. We've also ordered a specific kit that helps to curtail advanced infections and things of that nature. And I think our largest, that was actually our largest purchase, are the 2 machines. They add up to about $31,000. In addition, we have ordered quite a bit of disinfectant related activities so that we can clean and secure about 17 different buildings. The total of those initial precautionary measures adds up to about $49,048, which is why we add $49,048.49, which is why I asked for the initial $50,000, for which we've already begun to order those products. But I will tell you, I am not personally confident, based on the responses that we've seen from the state and the county, that is going to be enough to make sure that we can operate at a semblance to our normal operations while people figure this out.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
hold on. I'll get.
can I get one of the things to speak?
He has you in the queue, Councilmember Gilliard.
I would like to start first by making a movement to move, as you requested, the $1 million in legal to contingency. Second.
Properly moved. Second. Discussion.
Yes, my discussion is, Mr. Donald, as you know, several of us have just gotten back from the state of Washington, D.C. We were given a lot of updates and information that came directly from the legislative body, from the Capitol. This is a very serious matter. It's an unforeseen circumstance, which is what we should be using contingency for. The first thing in mind should be our employees and the residents of the city of South Fulton. So what I don't want to happen is for us to have to continue to call these special call meetings for you to get approval to do what you need to do on behalf of the employees and the citizens of the city of South Fulton. The governor, from my understanding, is in the process of issuing a state of an emergency. We just had someone to the first case to die in Georgia. Where other cities have not been touched, this city has been touched. I do think that we should take additional precautions. One of the things that they were doing in Washington DC, they had barrels of hand sanitizers. So I would like to see you do a mass order of hand sanitizers. I also would like to see, in cases, if possible, where we have employees that can telecommute until we can figure out what's going on, that you consider letting employees telecommute. As far as our council meetings, I know you're saying 250 or more. Until we can get more information of what's going on, I also would like to consider you, allowing us to do council meetings via telecommute. I think this situation will qualify us to do that. And, I give my colleagues have other things, but it's no question about moving that money from legal to contingency. I'll yield back to the city manager. She's asking to speak, Mayor.
Yeah, and so, Councilmember, I think you're 100% correct on that. I think there is one caveat. So we have not, so I'm trying to take some very proactive steps, right? This 250 or more, looking at San Francisco, Oakland, the District of Columbia, some other places, they have done it for 1,000 persons or more. We don't have those type of events, but our population seems to be the same types of demographics that are the hardest hit, which is why I'm saying 250 or more. I think I didn't get to go into great detail because I know that you've received those memos, it's in your packet, and we made it available to the public. But in addition to that, our partners at East Point have notified us that they have suspended court. And so we have had a slight backlog in court, and so we have been hesitant in doing so, but it is my goal to, after discussing with you guys, to suspend court as well, in line with what our partners in East Point have done. And so there are a few things that are within my authority administratively that I've not, because it's happening so quickly, I've been able to provide you some information in writing, and some of it I have not. But I wanted to assure you that most of that information and your requests are in your packets, and we have already made those orders. Unfortunately, there is a backlog on the hand sanitizer, and so we've gotten quite a bit of it. We've made a big order. Thank you to Mr. Valenzuela and Mr. Walker for those and other sanitary devices and fluids and things of that nature, which is why we've been proactive on the cleaning. But those closings, those teleworking, the ancillary activities, including the administrative leave, those will help us to not have to continue to clean it, because once we clean it once, the delay in receiving the type of cleaning supplies and things that we need will mean that we couldn't keep our residents safe. Now, I don't have the personal authority to allow our meetings not to be held in public. I believe if there's an emergency and we make the appropriate efforts to make it available via online and other things, then we can do that. But I'll have to defer to the city attorney, who would be the authority to give you those insights.
Mr. Don, I am definitely in agreement with you suspending court. I understand there is currently a backlog. Again, this is an unforeseen circumstance that we don't have a whole lot of information about. I also am in favor of suspending any public interaction with our employees and handling things online as much as possible. It was announced today that City of Atlanta did close their city hall. And so we have a large population, and we don't know where people, we can't control where people go. We can't control who's been impacted by Corona. I think we should take all precautions that we legally can take as far as the city of South Fulton is concerned.
Okay, Ms. Gilliard?
Ms. Gilliard?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
A couple of things. One of those things is that I do believe that it would be important, if we can, to have our meetings not in person. And I think that we need 250. I know that large, like the athletes are not having any games, but there are hundreds and hundreds of people that attend those kinds of meetings. But in our council meetings, sometimes people don't even know that they are infected. So I think the 250, I think it needs to be less than 250. I understand that there are items that need to be purchased because it's such an emergency. But what I would like to see would be an itemized list of what they are, how much they cost, and et cetera, et cetera. For number 4, the $1 million, it is true that we do not know, and it is estimated to be a pandemic, so we don't know how bad this is going to be and whether or not we are really going to even need more than $1 million, and we've already seen how the stock market and the economy is being affected, so we need to really deal with how to develop a cushion just in case it gets much worse than is being predicted now. But getting back to the $1 million, I don't know if all of it needs to be moved there, and I don't know if the justification is we don't need to be coming back to have meetings about it, because whether you know it or not, there are other issues that people are having that relates to being next to warehouses that are in another city where their walls, driveways are cracked, noise all night long, flooding, and all kinds of horrific conditions, and that's not being addressed at all. So at some point in time, we're going into year 3 now of this, we're going to have to figure out where we're going to get money to do what we need to do, that I'm not being specific about, that you all know that I keep bringing up. So I just want to let you know that it sounds good to move $1 million from legal, but I would say some of it and not all of it, because we need to have the lawsuit that you know I'm talking about.
Okay. Mr. Khalid,
First, I want to just say thank you, City Manager. First, I just want to say thank you, City Manager, for preparing this very comprehensive response. And I want to give a shout out to Chief Broom and our heroes at South Fulton Fire for the work that they have done to protect us all and keep us all safe. So thank you all so much, and our prayers are with you as you are still under quarantine. But we do have a motion on the floor, so I just want to talk to that motion. Mayor, I did have another item in a resolution, and that's, I want to be in the queue for that, but I'm not going to talk about that now because we started the meeting with a motion. And I am wondering, because we do have litigation that is pending or that is ongoing and happening right now, I don't want to empty out that budget completely. I'm wondering if maybe we could do $500,000. We have another meeting on Tuesday, so if something happens and all the courts are closed, then in 4 days we can move the second half. And my question for our Chief Finance Officer is, because I know that sometimes things can disappear in the general fund or in a contingency line, would it be possible to create a special line item in the budget that is specifically for this coronavirus, so that any money that's spent is spent only for that, and we have an accounting separate and away from our general fund?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
I think also, Councilmember Khalid, to provide just a little clarity, what I am asking for is not to stop any litigation or anything of that nature. It is when you place funds in a specific line item for a certain purpose, they become restricted. What I am saying is to make those funds unrestricted. And so if they are unrestricted and they are in the contingency, then it means if an emergency comes up over and above what we have the authority to utilize them. Like I do in any type of expenditure, whether in or out of budget, you would receive notification and insights in detail about how we plan to spend those funds or if the emergency rises to that occasion. So I'd like to make sure that that clarity is there. When the funds were in the contingency, and I think our financial officer can confirm this, we spent funds of that 1 million and paid the invoices from the litigation and all of that good stuff from contingency and aligned it there. We would be able to continue to do that. But if they are in the line for litigation or whatever it is, we can't use it for emergencies, which is why I've just gone ahead and made the decision to spend those monies, those up to $50,000, because it's such a dire emergency. But now we need to be able to have the authority to respond quickly on behalf of our residents. So my request remains the same, to move those funds into the contingency, and I have to provide you detailed updates on any expenditures and any actions that we make that would utilize those contingent funds.
Thank you. So as a compromise, what I would suggest, because again, we have another meeting in 3 days, and our chief financial officer says that we can have a restricted fund for this named emergency.
Yes, sir.
So what I would say is that if this motion fails, that we would consider another motion whereby we would leave $500,000 in our legal fund budget, at least until Tuesday, and that we would put the other $500,000 in a restricted fund for the coronavirus response, so that we're not just spending that money on other unnamed, unidentified emergencies.
Okay. Mr. Rao?
Clarification, is it not the case that any expenditure over a certain amount, you would have to bring it back to us anyway, whether you're bringing it from contingency or any other line?
That is correct. So my spending authority is only up to $25,000 without bringing it back before you anyway.
I just wanted to do that for the benefit of the public, because I didn't want it to seem, as has been mentioned, that money just disappeared.
Yeah,
Clarification
so
on that.
Dr. Rao, I think there does need to be a clarification though, because what I'm asking for is one thing, to move those funds into the contingency so that they're available for an emergency. The second piece is, I started off with a conversation of providing the authority for $50,000, knowing that that is our first endeavor. Before we leave here today, the council will need to decide what that emergency authority is, because I would be requesting that you provide the ability to spend up to, if we know we've got a $50,000 encumbrance, I might ask for an additional $50,000 on top of that for a total, or 25, or whatever the council decides. But I think we need to be able to have the authority to make certain purchases in response to these activities. Finally, this administrative leave portion, that would be within budget, but it would allow me the authority that if people cannot come to work and they have to be at home, let's say it's a parks manager and the parks programs are, not park manager, but a recreation specialist, and those parks activities are suspended, it would allow me to still pay them, which is in budget, without them actually having to come to work. So I just wanted to give that type of clarity.
Okay. And my second question is for the CFO. How much is currently in the line item for contingency? Because I know we have paid some. What is that dollar amount?
So without the transferring of the 1 million, actually it's not 1 million, because we removed some, we paid the legal. So you see, whatever remains, it's not 1 million.
I know.
She's asking for an estimate.
But the estimate of the just contingency is 400,000.
No. She's asking how much is in the legal line item based on.
In legal, we have two. We have legal, that is for the attorney fees, that's the 600. Then we had 100,000 in the rest of other expenses. Then we moved 1 million into that. 100 finished, then we started getting into 1 million.
So the total would be 1.6 million
1.6
minus expenditures, but you don't know that amount. Is that what I?
as the invoices are still coming up, so
I think
Can you give me a rough
An
amount?
estimate, something.
so the 600 they are told we should be putting, we should say 1,100,000.
he's basically saying that there was 1.1 million. What they are asking is, of the 1.1 million, is it a fair estimate to say that we have had expenditures of approximately 200,000 of that 1.1 million, or is it less than that?
We have about 700 plus thousand
Left.
left.
But that's all I'm, okay.
All right.
Being given that, I would ask that Councilwoman Willis reconsider the motion, given where we are, and look at amount 400,000. And I think that would satisfy Councilman Khalid's request that, you know, if something comes up, we're meeting on Tuesday, but at least something in both places.
So, am I allowed to speak, Chair?
She's you asking for an
Yeah, I'm
added to the
asking,
motion?
right, to
accept
reduce
that?
the amount
I need that.
to 400,000, given what he says in the line
All right, let me
item
see if
for
the motion is-
contingency.
We accept that.
So what I would ask for is a reconsideration, because I made my motion based off of your request of $1 million. So I would ask for a reconsideration of the $1 million and move to for the 400,000. But I also am asking that between now and Tuesday, that we have a full accounting of what's in contingency, what expenses have as of today come in, and what's left. Because that number, you know, frankly, we should have had under these circumstances. Mr. Donald was requesting to move that money, so frankly, we should have had that. We should know what's in that account if somebody's asking to move it. So I need, this entire council needs to be sent information, a full accounting of that account. But yes, I will accept, I will remove my, will ask for reconsideration.
Or just
Yes,
amend your motion.
Yes, amend.
To amend my motion to move to approve $400,000 from legal to contingency.
Second.
You were the original second of the motion.
Yeah,
Does that meet with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. The original second of Ms. Rao, she says okay. Mr. Baker?
Yes, first of all, I would like to start by saying thanks to Chiefs, both of you guys, Chief Brewer, Chief Meadows, and all the things that you guys have been doing to make sure that we're safe in the city. We appreciate all your work. And I'm not going to be redundant because I just had an issue with the whole $1 million going. But it seemed like before I got in the queue, my colleagues masterfully, you know, worked it out. So I'm in agreement with this motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Ms. Combs?
So I just have a few questions. I apologize for my tardiness that may have been covered. But Mr. Manager, are you planning to institute, I guess, a hiring freeze at this point in time?
So we actually already have a hiring freeze in place, and we have looked at everything as a case-by-case basis. So anyone who has not received an offer to date will likely not receive one until we have a better understanding of what is occurring. Now, we do have some vital roles, personnel-wise, that we are definitely going to need to fill to be able to continue to respond, and we will be able to talk about some of those activities in executive session. But I do believe that we will continue this hiring freeze now indefinitely unless a position is considered essential by the standard of what I believe the city needs.
How long do you anticipate that, I guess, this plan of the events and things at City Hall, how long do you anticipate this to
So
take
initially,
place?
I am following the lead of some of my colleagues around the nation and making these things last through April 1st, depending on the activity. So it would be my intent at the end of this meeting to announce the suspension of courts through the end of March. We would do the same for recreation programming. We would have adjusted hours of City Hall for tomorrow, and then effective Monday, depending on whether we get the equipment and things to protect our staff, we may end up having to do a closure. But we did an emergency order, as you know, while y'all at NLC, and so I believe we may have some of those things in time to have some limited services so that we can still provide services at City Hall.
Do we know what those limited services, have they been identified?
So some of them have been, some of those things, since this is an emergency, I'd like to be able to have those conversations with you guys in a different setting.
Okay.
But I will say those gatherings of 250 people or more kind of helps define that. So if we had some type of activity where there were going to be 350 people to see a play, that goes away. And those types of activities and actions. But the general area in which we can control 10 to 12 or 15 people entering and exiting facilities would still be able to continue.
So with the State of the City address that's coming up on the 25th, you anticipate that being canceled?
Yes, ma'am. Not canceled. I wouldn't call any of these
Postponed.
cancellations, but everything is a postponement. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And one other thing, as we know, this is definitely probably going to spread, and we're going to start knowing people that actually have this. I don't know what the plan looks like if an employee is tested positive for the coronavirus. What does that look like for you as city manager?
So the first thing is that, and we partner, I think the mayor knows because he's a part of the chief local electeds and executive task force working group for Fulton County and the state, along with myself and both of the chiefs. But the first thing is we'd be partnering with the Department of Health and the governor's office and the state of Georgia to identify and coordinate quarantine. We would also do proactive self-quarantines, which is why I requested the ability to provide administrative leave for those impacted in self-quarantine so that they can continue to earn income while they self-quarantine. We then evaluate and check in via telehealth as well as Apple iPhones and things of that nature to be able to see their health and things. And before they can return, they would be able to provide a state-approved, county-approved, and city-approved doctor's release to return to work once the incubation period has passed.
And all our informational technical platforms are able to allow for us to kind of go virtual.
So for the most part, for most people, but there are some people, as you could imagine, who don't have a laptop, who do not have the ability to do that, city-issued iPhone and things of that nature. Those are the folks who would be on administrative leave versus those who would be teleworking. And so we do have the ability at the city to provide that, but everyone does not have the equipment, which is also why I've asked for the ability to have some of those funds in the contingency area that is authorized to me. So the first portion of the contingency is get the equipment, get the tools, protect our folks and protect our citizens. But we also have to have a continuation of government and to be able to keep as much of the status quo to deliver as possible. That is going to require that some folks who might be in the field, we have to get a couple of more iPhones so that we can be able, you know, if you think about it for transportation, now that people are going to have to be moving a little different, we got to make sure our roads are in place. And while those folks don't interact with people, we need to be able to communicate better, and they may not have the tools necessary. There may be somebody that oversees a small group of people who doesn't have a laptop, and we need to be able to have them be able to contact us and work remotely. And so we are putting together our estimates to be able to make those purchases on an emergency basis, which is again why I'm asking, now that you have made the transition of the, let's call it 400,000 or whatever it was, I need the authority for sure the 50,000 that I've already encumbered, but maybe an additional 50,000 to be able to purchase those things that are being identified. And in full disclosure, during our meeting, every department head is getting me a list by close of business today so that I can educate you better on what our needs are and what type of spend would take place.
Okay. And my last and final question, any of the city facilities, how are you making the determination of when you're gonna go and sanitize those facilities? Is it based off of?
Oh no, we're taking them all as quick as we can
Okay,
get it
right.
done. So I think we started with Fire Station 15 because there was potential exposure. The others, based on our closure schedule and the manpower, contracts, et cetera, is how we'll determine it. And so the largest, most utilized facilities, which would be City Hall and let's say Welcome Mall Park, are of course going to be priority on the list, but every city facility is going to receive the service as quickly as possible.
Let me, Ms. Gunn,
Yes, sir.
let me just add to that. When we're talking about state and local collaboration, we've even gotten to the point where if there's someone who needs to be quarantined, because you may be the person who needs to be quarantined, but you may live with your wife and 3 children, and you don't want to risk the spread of the virus in your home. There are plans in place where we can take quarantine people and keep them 15 days. So these are the types. I've been talking to our risk manager today, and we're talking about a lot of things, proactive things about maybe how can we get people tested before they know. So there's a lot of things going on right now and to protect ourselves from this deadly virus. What I'm going to do now is, Mr. Reed, you go ahead and speak, and we're going to close it here.
Well, I yield back, but I want to thank you, Mayor, City Manager, our chiefs, and our staff for proactively doing that. And you literally just answered the questions that I had, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. At this point, we'll take a vote. You want to restate the motion so we make sure it's clear, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, it was a motion by Councilmember Willis and seconded by Councilmember Khalid on the amended motion to allocate $400,000 from the contingency fund.
Okay, let's vote, please.
From legal to the contingency fund.
Is that correct?
Yes,
From
legal to the contingency fund.
Okay, let's vote. Let me see hands. That was voted
You
unanimous.
wish to vote?
Mr. Mayor.
Hello? She's gone.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move.
Let me go with Mr. Khalid, and I'll go with you.
I want to address the issue that you spoke about with courts.
Okay.
I agree with that, and I'm going to make a motion that we suspend courts. I do just want to note, though, that we didn't have court in January because we didn't have a place, and then we didn't have court in February because we didn't have an agreement with East Point, and so now we're not having court in March.
No,
All right,
sir.
how many months have we not had
So
court?
we have had court in every month. We've had to reschedule a couple of meetings, but because we have access to multiple facilities, we have continued court.
Okay, so let me state it like this. We are currently backlogged.
We have a backlog.
We're currently backlogged, and we're now going to, so I just want us to think in this time of suspension, how we will catch up.
Oh,
with
that's
with
a
that
part.
backlog.
And,
I just want to put that out
no
there.
question.
So,
I would also say, if you are going to make a motion, I don't think it's required for you to make a
But it is
motion.
not.
But if you're going to make a motion to suspend court or any motions that you make, I would just ask that you authorize me to do it so that I can get with these subject matter experts to determine how we do it.
Okay,
Because
well,
that's
no. It sounds like no motion is required, so I will go to my next item,
Yes, sir.
which was,
Before you go, if you don't mind, let me speak on this issue of backlog real fast. That issue has come up, and we have done everything we feel as a government to catch up, and we have been catching up. I've talked with other mayors who has allowed me to do things in that city, and I've talked to Phoenix, so I don't want to get people to understand that this backlog situation is not as severe as people think it is.
Agreed.
so my next issue is this, I wrote this resolution, and it's in alignment with a lot of the things that you've already talked about around paid administrative leave. It also takes into account some of the issues that the mayor brought up, in that if not our employee, if not a city employee is being infected, some immediate family member may be infected, and they may have to stay home because of that. And So the first two issues of the ordinance deal with exempt employees and non-exempt employees, and it just gives a certainty. I know that you already have this power under administrative leave, but I think that particularly for our hourly employees, it would be great if they had the certainty to know that it was going to be covered. The third section deals with our contractors, because I'm not sure that the administrative leave policy covers contractors like those people that work for public works. And then the last part just encourages businesses to do this same thing. There are a lot of cities that are moving to this. I know there's some conversations about it at the state and the federal level, but I think that it would be wonderful if we could provide that kind of certainty, particularly to our hourly employees, that they are going to be paid.
So I have seen the resolution, I have perused it a little bit, and I saw it maybe an hour or so ago, and what I would say is, and I know that HR has this feedback, they copied me on it or whatnot, so our recommendation with, and you know, it's to the will of the council on how you move forward with any of these things, and I do believe that a public statement ensuring our employees that we have their best interest at hand, and that we are going to ensure that they are paid and compensated during this time is not only appropriate, but something that you guys have always stood behind our employees. I do not necessarily believe it is required though, and I am always cautious, probably overly, and I would be biased because I'm an administrator, so of course I would love less legislation, but I don't know if this one, what concerns me is once you put something on as a resolution or ordinance, it is law, and it can have unintended consequences. On camera, Channel 2, our regular television, I have no problem saying that it is my full intent under the authority of the council and the city of South Fulton to ensure that all of our employees, whether hourly or exempt, do not miss a paycheck, have any level of uncomfortability, and that we do everything in our power to make sure that they are taken care of in full and they have not missed a paycheck in the time that I've been here, whether it be 2 weeks of travel or whatever it is, and I will continue that commitment under your authority and your guidance forevermore. And so I think that we are prepared to do that. We've met with all of our department heads and they've had that same guidance. But how we do it is something that I would like the flexibility and authority to do, because I can allow our exempt employees to telework and help us keep the mission going forward of the city during this time, and I can provide administrative leave within budget to all of those other employees that are hourly. And so my commitment is on the record. My word has been impeccable. And so I would ask people on camera to simply hold me to it. But I would ask for you to be very cautious in passing legislation that binds you during this uncertain time.
Well, I thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
And that satisfied me. To some extent, I want to make sure that we take care of our hourly employees, even if it's going to be a strain to our budget. I do have a question for our if there are any HR people here, because I do not know if that authorization extends to our public works employees. Much of that department is our contract employees. I just wonder how we would address
So I do
that.
have an answer for you on that. And so I would tell you, I've talked to Mr. Valenzuela. He's currently not here now.
He's here.
Oh, he is? Okay, so in the back. And we just had a conversation about this. So Jacobs is one of our transportation employees, but we also have those on T-Splosh as well. For the bulk of them, they're not public-facing employees, and I think that was the comment that I was making before. We want to ensure that we are able to step up our communication and coordination with them, but we don't want them to stop working. We have no intent to stop making those payments, and so we are expecting Jacobs to not breach their contract and provide, that level of service. I think you guys advocated before we entered into the contract to make sure they have health insurance benefits, et cetera, and so those things remain in place. They would be impacted because they are essential service staff, and if the governor declared, depending on how he declares a state of emergency, if everyone has to stay in their homes, then they would be required to do so as well. But based on their benefits and us paying that contract, they would still receive their pay. And it would be my full expectation, also on camera and the staff, that Jacobs uphold that requirement. We've met with Jacobs today and reiterated that and let them know that people first, and they have committed to continue that. So I think we're all on the same page there.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Willis?
Yes, thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. Mayor and Attorney Walker, what I would like to see is some consistency on how we do business. Now, when I tried to walk on a resolution 2 meetings ago to expand the development authority, what you advised me, what you opined, is that the agenda had to be amended for me to add that resolution on. That's on record and that's on tape. Now here's the second time, and my colleagues were upset because the very resolution that I was trying to walk on, they had never seen, and it did not have a fiscal impact statement to it. Now, this is the second time a resolution has been walked onto a special call meeting agenda. This is the first time any of us have seen these resolutions. There's no fiscal impact statement. And is this allowed?
Let me say this. I want to be germane to what the agenda is. No, I don't know what the agenda is. And that is the authorization of expenditures by the city manager. She makes a good point. But I want to bring us back to our agenda. All right? Mr. Baker.
I don't know if we were doing or not, but I know the city manager gave us a lot of information earlier, and there were requests made. I think he requested approximately, out of the money that we've already moved, $50,000 that he's already encumbered, and an additional $75,000. And I'd like to make that motion to approve the city manager's request for
Giving me that authority.
Yes, giving him that authority.
Second.
Second.
The properly moved to second. Could you read that motion back again to me, Mr. Clerk?
The motion by Councilmember Baker, second by Councilmember Gumbs.
This discussion, I have something to say.
We got you. He's just reading back the motion.
Yeah, to authorize the city manager to the expenditure of $50,000, which has been encumbered, in addition to the $75,000, which he requested today.
Okay, and it was seconded by whom?
Gumbs.
We're in discussion. I have Ms. Rao.
And Ms.
Please.
Gilliard.
I got it.
Now it's kind of out of turn, but I'm ready to vote, so.
Okay. Ms. Gilliard?
I have no problem with the motion, but what I would like to add, rather than just blanketly say 50,000 plus 75, we should have an itemized list of whatever it is that's going to be purchased. That's what I would like to add on to that.
Yes, Chairman, Councilmember, I think I committed to that. I apologize if I wasn't clear, but it is my full intent, as I do with every expenditure or request, to provide in writing in advance of any expenditure or decision on what the intent is, to provide you feedback. It would also be a part of the following council meeting packet, similar to this same information that we provided. The only missing piece is we received the $50,000 itemized list shortly before council, so it will be in your inbox, before this council meeting, so it'll be in your inbox once you leave. As a matter of fact, Mr. Coleman, if you could just forward that list to them now, you'll have it within the next 10 minutes. Without my vetting, and so we will continue to operate with that level of education, transparency, and notification that we have in the past. And so it's my full
So let
intent to
me
do
be
so.
clear. So we're going to get the 50,000 itemized list in our inbox shortly, and we're going to get the $75,000 when?
As it happens. So what we're asking for is so I went through a pretty detailed list of activities, needs, and justifications. And so as we develop and prioritize those, you will be kept in the loop, both in meetings, in writing, and through whatever other form that you so please. But I think it has become clear that as fast as this item is moving, we have to be able to react. And so I'm asking for that authority to include those areas for which I've discussed previously, which might be small purchase items of computers, small purchase items of the telephone, which we may not end up seeing as a priority if cleanliness, health, and incubation is an example. I'll give you one quick example so that we can move on. One of the firefighters of the 3 had some challenges with finding a place to self-quarantine. If he would not have been able to self-quarantine within a matter of hours from when he did, I was going to pay for his incubation at one of the state-approved hotels to ensure that he does not endanger himself or others. I need to be able to make those decisions very quickly in the best interest of our public and our staff. And so that blanket is one that I'm pretty staunch on being that we need. And so I would, of course, defer to the council, but I think we're going to continue to be prudent in our expenditures, but also do so with the care of our employee and citizens.
So I'm going to be staunch about this. I am very concerned about our employees, our citizens,
Yes, ma'am.
the number of people that are attending meetings, but there is somewhere how it is you tackle this pandemic that we are facing, and what are some of the basic things that you will need in addition to other kinds of things. And so I still did not hear, if you need $75,000, then you have given us a dollar amount, and that dollar amount should equate to something. So I think that it is reasonable to say, just for instance, you know, we need X number of this, X number of that. Now, we might need this. We don't know how much it's going to cost, but we estimated that it will be, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's...
No, ma'am, that is, I respectfully disagree. I understand, but since no time since the 1918 influenza has the United States or the world faced something like this, and so there is no way that we know how to prepare. And so as an administrator, I am on a variety of different calls, getting as much information as possible, relaying it as much as possible, and I am carrying out your intent to protect our residents and our employees with great effort and respectability. But there is no way under any circumstances that we know that now. As you saw last night, our president doesn't know, our governor doesn't know, our county commission chair doesn't know, and so Mr. Donald is stepping out on a limb to make sure we're prepared and putting those things in place. So I respectfully ask for you to move forward with this ask.
So my latest comment is that China knows, because now theirs is decreasing.
We call for the previous question.
We have not, excuse me,
Might not know, but just because they don't doesn't mean that everybody doesn't know, and I will close with that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Willis?
Mr. Mayor, I have another motion, but can we call for the previous question on this motion?
Make a motion. Call for it. Well,
I need to make another motion after this.
we'll get that one out.
Okay, I would like to move to call the previous question on this motion.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Discussion. Let's vote on the previous question. Call the previous question. Okay, that passes. Let's vote. Let's vote on the motion. I'm going to read the motion again.
Main motion by Councilmember Baker, seconded by Councilmember Gumbs, for the City Council to authorize the City Manager to proceed with the encumbered expenditures under the $50,000 plus the additional $75,000 mentioned today.
Let's vote, please.
I need to make another motion.
I will allow you. That passes. Ms. Willis, you still have this one?
Mayor, I move that we suspend public council meetings until, how long do, I will defer to the city manager. How long do
You
you
mean
think?
allowing the public to come, not suspending the meetings, but you mean public attendance to the
Yes.
meeting? Okay.
I would like for us to have, Mr. Don, how would you recommend that we, and also the clerk, do we have the capability to have our, and well, first of all, Attorney Walker, can you opine on what we legally can do before I do that? So let me withdraw that motion and can you opine what we legally can do, and then I'll make a motion based off of what we legally can do.
So it sounds like you would like to have meetings, but not have the public present, but have a way to where the public could still watch simultaneously as well as comment. You can do that. You would do that under the teleconference exception under the Open Records Act. It doesn't speak to virtual meetings. What you described would basically be a virtual meeting, but there is enough flexibility in the language, I think, that you could fit a virtual meeting under that. And I know that other jurisdictions have similarly interpreted it to include virtual meetings. So basically, the only restriction would be is that you would need to give the public simultaneous access as the meeting occurs. And then, for example, public comment section, you'd have to coordinate some process where they could get their comments in and they can be read publicly.
And so to that end, we have acquired poll code, which allows us to post those things and receive input from the public, I believe, in real time. I believe that we could come up with the process. I can't commit to exactly how we would do that right now, but if you give me until maybe close of business tomorrow, I would have a recommendation. I think what we would likely do is post the poll code survey, and when we post the poll code survey, we would allow people to provide their public comments in advance and maybe read them to you guys so the public can hear them, and then we could definitely, of course, provide access to the meetings for sure, virtually.
So Attorney Walker, based off of what Mr. Donald said, the capability that we have, did you hear him?
Yeah, I did hear he said we have capability where we could accomplish that. I think that the zoning director was also asking about her zoning cases. So whatever technology you have available would need to be able to incorporate their petitions.
So I think that piece would be a challenge to us. And so the next meeting would actually be on the 17th, would not have any zoning activities, zoning cases. So I would ask that you give me until at least that time to work with our director as well as our programs and performance team to create some type of solution. Again, in real time, not committing to making any decisions because I just don't know. I know that we have the poll code capability. We can receive public comment in advance for those who have technology. And since we have the 24/7 call center, we could also allow those people who don't have access to internet or whatever it is to be able to call and give their public comments, and we can capture them. That I can commit to without any question. How we manage the zoning cases, you have to give me until the 17th at minimum.
So Attorney Walker, would it be, it's 8 of us on council. We have about, how many department heads, Donald? Mr. Donald?
11 basically.
So it's 8 of us on council, 11 department heads. So that'll be roughly about maybe 25 people at council meeting if we just include 8 council members, inclusive of the mayor, and 11.
Mission essential stuff.
Yeah, right. So that will put us under 50. So can we legally have our council meetings, but allow the public to participate virtually?
Yes.
So what I would like to do is move that we have council meetings, which will allow city council, inclusive of the mayor, essential employees to attend, and allow public to attend virtually. Will you be able to accommodate that as of now, Mr. Donald?
As described, yes.
Second, but discussion.
Properly moved, second, discussion.
So can we legally, so even if we are allowing them to virtually, I guess, participate, can we legally turn them away and tell them that they can't come to the facility?
You can legally do that. You have to be able to cite. You can do that. There is an emergency exception. So basically, you would be having a virtual teleconference. The teleconference anticipates that you guys won't be together collectively, but it doesn't mandate that you not be together collectively. So you can meet together collectively and have a virtual teleconference. The clerk would just need to comply with all the emergency requirements under the Open Records Act to facilitate that.
So we still go through the notification process. We will come together as a council, but it will be teleconference,
Yeah, it would be, I would call it a virtual
a
teleconference.
virtual teleconference, but the public would not be allowed to have access to. Virtually, they'll have access, but if we're here meeting, having a teleconference via City Hall, and if a resident comes and wants to get in, we cannot deny them, right?
No, you can, you are allowed to deny in that capacity as long as you give them notice and a means to where they can simultaneously watch your proceedings. So it's not about when an emergency situation occurs, they don't physically have to be there, but they have to be able to monitor what you're doing, and that would be part of that process that the city manager would put in place to allow them to monitor what you're doing simultaneously as it happens.
Just be mindful of the seniors that don't have access.
Well, I understand. Mr. Khalid,
I'll have a different issue.
okay, your issue about this, go ahead.
You know, I'm sure our public loves us, but I think they're going to be prudent and not come to a meeting if this thing continues to escalate. If you look in this room, the majority of the people in here are city employees. We have a few brave citizens, and thank you for coming, but I mean, people use good judgment, so, you know, I know our public will, you know, govern themselves accordingly as well, so be mindful of that.
Before I go to Mr. Khalid, let me just say a couple of things. One is I want to give a lot of credit. I mean a lot of credit to our city manager. He and I have worked on things. He has worked well up in the night to make sure that this situation is handled. You must remember that when he first came to us, a little 2 years ago, he came to us in a tornado. We got through that. You are our family. If you lived in my house, I would be wanting to take care of you. You live in our house, so we have to take care of you. We cannot afford to restrict people, regardless of whether it's a resolution or anything else, from them properly taking care of the business of safety for our citizens. You're going to have to trust that they're going to make the right decision. There's going to be some unintended consequences. But that's what we pay him for. There's going to be, he has nothing, nobody wants to bankrupt this city. Nobody does. But we want to make sure that this city is safe, that its people are protected, and we got to allow our administrators and our public safety people to do their job, and don't hang me down with something like that. Right. Do not restrict me from what I'm doing. I'm sure that he has always been a person of integrity. He's not going to do something out of line without bringing it to us. And if anybody can say that, stand up and say it now. But he's not done it. He's going to do the right things. So I want to protect not only my family, your family, everybody who works for us family, by allowing this man to do his job. And Mr. Donald, I want to thank you. I want to thank you sincerely for doing the job that you've done. I know you work late. I went with you. He worked late at night, but he's been diligent in making this thing work. And I think that we are South Fulton. We are South Fulton, and we've come through a lot of things. And we at South Fulton, we will get through this. And when we get through it at the end of the day, you won't be looking back saying that we don't have no money. All right? We're going to be very diligent at what we do. So I just want to make that statement because I think we voted on every motion on this item, right?
No, but I got a motion on the floor to allow us to have council members, inclusive of the mayor, and essential staff to attend the council meeting.
Let's vote.
And have public attend virtually.
Let's vote.
And then the law requires that we also indicate that this is based on circumstances that are necessitated by emergency conditions and then related to the coronavirus.
Based on circumstances necessitated by the emergency conditions.
relating to the coronavirus.
Relating to the coronavirus. Second.
Okay, let's vote.
Oh,
That, 3?
it's four.
It's 4. That passes 4. Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
So first of all, Mr. Donald, I hope that you don't think that I or anyone else,
I'm very
are suspicious of the job that you're doing. I don't get invited to the meetings that you and the mayor have.
understood, yes, sir.
But as a representative of the city, I talk to people throughout the city. All of us were elected. We all have been talking to our constituents about this coronavirus. We are all concerned about the city, and we all have ideas about what we can do for the welfare of our city.
Yes, sir.
When I read this special call meeting agenda, it said city's response to coronavirus.
Yes, sir.
So we all have ideas about how to respond. You just heard a motion to close meetings. We talked about court, and there is another issue that I have been concerned about. As I have visited grocery stores and stocked up myself, I see the stores being emptied out. I've spoken with Mr. Willie Miller, who is the head of our South Fulton food policy group, and I was informed that most grocery stores only have 3 days worth of food. And we talked about a possible solution to help our city grow food in our parks for our citizens. That could be used not just in this emergency, but in any emergency, and would increase our economic independence and our food sovereignty. So, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I would love to hear from Mr. Miller about this issue in response to our coronavirus, if that is okay, as we are discussing our emergency response.
Well, I don't think Madam City Attorney, if you can weigh in, I don't think we allow public comments on special call meetings.
So I'm not asking for a public comment. I'm asking for a farmer in our community to talk about a solution. It's not a comment on what we're doing, but I can't be as articulate about this food sovereignty and security issue as someone who farms in our city.
So, Mr. Khalid, Councilman Khalid, I would ask that you would try to do your best, because again, from our processes, we have not allowed our public to make comments, so.
Okay, so
So we can add it to, we've got a meeting on Tuesday, I think.
can we add it to the meeting on
To the
Tuesday?
agenda on
I don't
Tuesday.
think
Yeah,
it's
it's their
been- I don't think it's been
discretion.
public, you know.
That's why I'm not cool. It's like, we're excluded.
So as it was explained to me, and I would love if we could talk about this on Tuesday or sometime. I don't really care when we talk about it, as long as we talk about it,
I think
right?
we can make sure that-
Is that on as little as 5 acres of land, which we could find in our park, that we could feed 100,000 people, and that for a nominal investment of like $50,000 to $100,000 or something like that, that we could begin a program where we are providing food for our citizens. And so I just hope that at some point we can have that conversation.
I think you guys have talked about sustainability as something that's very important to the city, that definitely aligns with sustainability issues. And so as we look at I don't think the mid-year budget would, especially under these circumstances, would be the appropriate time. But as we begin planning for FY21, instituting a project like that at $100,000 cost should be something that if we return to normalcy, we can look at it too. So, yes, sir.
Let me just add to that. There are people in our community who are doing that now. One of our churches is starting theirs very soon, Zion Hill. Catherine Rao was at a kickoff or groundbreaking. They're doing something like that also. So as we look at, Mr. Manager,
Yes, sir.
as we look at cost, let us also find out what our people are doing.
Yes, sir. We'll do our due diligence. Yes, sir.
Ms. Gunn, go ahead.
So I do remember, City Manager, in some of your comments, you made the statement that you need a temporary authorization purchasing up to 50.
I think you
Or
guys
did
just
we cover
gave me
that
that.
already?
So
We just
the
gave it to them.
$50,000 would be the encumbrances that we did to, that have already been put in place. and Mr. Baker, his motion was to authorize an additional 75 for those other purchases.
Okay.
And so, again, I would have to notify you, keep you in the loop, et cetera, but it just does not stop the process. I think you have already given me that authorization. They voted on that already, right? So what you would then look for from me is anything above. So first, once those products are here and we've actually paid for them, that first 50,000, you would get notification, and I would let you know where we are. If there's anything else related to that, you would also get additional information. So let's assume that we move forward with the plan that has been provided, and we identify that there are some non-essential personnel that need to be deemed essential, and they need equipment to be essential. I would notify you of that we have made those purchases. Here are what they are. This is what they cost, and here is the time frame in which we would activate them.
Okay. And just one more thing. So the clerk stated that Mr. Miller can actually add a presentation on the 17th for the work session.
Okay.
So will we be able to
Wait a
hear
minute,
from?
what you doing?
No, I'm saying,
Yeah,
if
so I
it was
think,
brought up that he will be able to present his sustainability plan for the farm and what they're looking to try and do
On what agenda?
on the work session agenda
For the 17th.
I thought we just told
This
people they
one, he
couldn't call.
was just talking, he was out there.
just asking.
I'm just asking for clarification because the clerk said it could be done.
So I think it is not, I don't think the agenda for Tuesday has been published yet, usually not until
Tomorrow.
But she
tomorrow.
said it has.
And so, oh, it has been, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I apologize. And so,
It's on the website.
I'm assuming maybe you can add it on or you can take action now and there's enough time to amend the agenda because it would still be 48 hours before. So you should be able to add it to it and he would be one of your only a few public guests that would be a part of the, I mean, that all falls within the will of the council.
Oh yeah, we just.
Yeah. Well,
Well, let's gotta clear it up.
understood.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so we voted on all items on this particular issue. Call the sound of the next item, please.
Next item is item 2, council approval to authorize the pursuit of multiple grants.
All right, so I would ask for Ms. Reed to stand, who is present,
Gotcha.
as well as we have our fire and police. And so they can come here to my right and address the council, but I'll give a brief overview. So we have, because we canceled the meeting, we have this emergency meeting that we had to schedule. There's just some administrative business that we are asking the council to give us the authority to do. As you know, our next meeting is on the 17th, but the CDBG grant application is required to be submitted on the 18th. And it requires a resolution from the council. And the information is in your packet. I think you know I wrote Dick Anderson a letter asking him and requesting that we have the ability to apply for those funds based on the current CDBG processes, et cetera, et cetera. And so they send us information and a process to do it. That was only about a week and a half ago, and so now that we know it requires a resolution, we are requesting that you approve our ability to apply and give the authority to develop the resolution for submittal to myself and the city attorney so that we can meet that 18th deadline. There is also a small grant, I think it's only $5,000 for police. How much?
Was it firefighters?
Oh, firefighters is only about $5,000, but it is for the purposes in your grant, in your packet. I'll let them address it. There's a similar one for police that popped up. I think many of you guys sent it to us, and all of those deadlines fall before the 17th. So we asked to put it on here so that we can continue to pursue these grants and things to enhance our revenues and ability to perform and serve, giving us the authority to go after them. And so we have our grant administrator here who can answer any of your questions, as well as the respective department heads as well. But I think this is just normal business, but the dates on our changing the council meetings had these kind of fall in a gray area to where we would normally have them on the consent agenda of a regularly scheduled meeting.
I'll entertain a motion. And go to discussion.
I move that we approve to authorize pursuit of multiple grants.
Second.
Properly moved in second discussion. This is Gilliard. Ms. Come fix this thing. Hold up, I can't hear you. Hold up. Ms. Gilliard?
Trying to get in before it was closed down about agriculture, simply because we have a major project with the National League of Cities that focuses on agriculture. So if we're going to talk about agriculture and spending money for it, it just doesn't need to be in one location. It needs to be in 2 locations.
Okay.
And that project needs to be a part of it. So if we're going to do a work session,
Yeah.
my folks from agriculture needs to be a part of that work
Okay,
session.
we take that in consideration. Okay? Ms. Rob?
One of the things I will say, having worked with these grant funds, the resolution needs to be specific. If we even work from the one that's in front of us, we need to be specific to what they've aligned in terms of what they're trying to seek funding. And so we're talking about improvements to our recreational facilities. And if so, I would recommend that we not use contingency, but look at the URA funds, because we've already earmarked some funds for these facilities. Secondly,
I just want to make sure they got that on the record for the notes, because we got a lot going on, so that
so
caveat that
section
she
1,
added,
I'm just working from this because I don't have anything else, because the resolution needs to be official resolution for the CDBG fund, that we change contingency to URA funds, urban redevelopment funds.
Can we put contingency and/or, so just in case, because the problem with using URA funds is that those funds are designated towards specific projects.
Right.
So to use it, it may require us to reduce certain line items. And if that's not desirable by administration, at least it gives the flexibility.
But you know how the URA funds, they're in buckets for facilities, right?
That's
It
correct.
doesn't spell out. So right now, the way this resolution is, you're speaking specifically about HVAC. So you wouldn't have a problem with this, and it gives you a match. Because the
Yeah, what she's
application
saying is-
specifically asks, what's your source of match? And I'm saying contingency, we just went over a whole thing on contingency, and we're down to a limited number. We do have match for this already.
So I think the concern of staff is that they do not believe that the URA funds, that these projects are budgeted in the URA fund.
But they're buckets, is all I'm saying.
That's why the and/or would probably be more appropriate.
Yeah, I think the and/or would allow us to go there first, but to, like, for example, if
As long as you go there first, because I do think we have
Understood.
enough.
Okay.
I think-
So can I add a sentence to the end of that motion?
Okay, go ahead.
Saying that, consistent with what Councilwoman Rao just said, that we'll put and/or URA fund with priority to be given to the URA fund.
Yeah, that's fine.
And in addition, the city manager and city attorney shall be authorized to create resolutions as necessary, consistent with this resolution, to submit with the applications.
So I'm fine with that. And then one other thing, under third whereas, it's not consistent with what we're asking for, so we need to change this language. It says, I think we should say the city council desires to provide improved community facilities and address slum and blight in the city, as opposed to the demolition and all that, because that doesn't match the request, so it's consistent. And the reason I say this, because I know we talked about, and we've earmarked funds to address blight, and this is one of the goals of this program, so we should align that up. It just makes sense. So you can keep that language if we decide to
Add
submit.
slum and blight.
Yes,
Okay.
but you need to say provide improved community facilities.
Okay, I'll add that too.
Okay, Mr. Khalid and Ms. Willis.
Hold on.
Okay,
Thank you, Ms.
Willis.
Rowe.
Well, I think we have to get to the amount, I don't know. The good thing about it doesn't specifically say the match requirement, that they want you to provide some, but they're not specific. So
All right, Ms. Willis?
we probably need to do up to amount in this resolution to give you maximum flexibility.
Ms. Willis?
So our community block development grants, we can't go after these grants until we get our entitlement, correct?
No, ma'am. So this application is for us to go after the Fulton County funds that are currently available, but you have to apply by the 18th. And so separately, we are pursuing the others, but that has been pushed, I think that's 2021, June of 2021 from those previous correspondences. But my letter to Mr. Anderson in Fulton County was to get us in the loop for the funds they already have and we're trying to get back.
Okay, so they have decided not to give those funds.
Well, I believe they have a current period for which they have to disperse those current funds, and so we're going after those funds now.
Okay, and this will be for 2020?
Correct.
Okay, and so for the entitlement of 2021, for funding for 2021, we're going.
Entitlement.
So
Correct.
when I spoke with you yesterday,
We were talking about the federal piece,
Right.
but that hasn't come yet for us. Remember, we were not incorporated. I didn't think about this until we got off the phone.
Okay.
The first batch, we were not a city yet, so we weren't eligible.
Okay.
Our eligibility period for which the congressman can assist us with is 21.
Okay.
What's happening and what's on the agenda now is for 20.
Okay.
That has to be in by the 18th, and that's local Fulton County.
Okay, so for the 2021, have we gotten, I remember talking to you, Ms. Kelly, and you were saying you were waiting on that entitlement letter?
Yes, and actually I had a call just as recent as before this meeting with HUD, and what they're waiting on is a letter from the city to identify that we will accept the entitlement fund. So they changed the story. They said initially we were going to receive the letter, now they're saying we need to submit the letter.
So I know why you got that call. But can I get, so was there an application we submitted?
Before I was on board, there was a package submitted to apply for entitlement.
Yeah, and so I think we can get the packet that we submitted, but also if they are simply saying we need a letter from the city, what you could do is make a motion to authorize either myself or the mayor, and preferably probably a chief local elected official, to submit a letter on behalf of the city accepting entitlement status.
So and with that being said, I move that we authorize.
Already on the floor.
You got
Can I
it?
add that to this motion that's already
It's
here?
separate.
It's
And
separate?
put it in this resolution?
No.
Okay.
Well, I'll
it's
make a separate
It's
motion.
Yeah, they separate.
Right.
Okay.
One federal one.
Okay, I'll make a separate motion, and then I also, Mr. Mayor, well, let's finish
Let's
this
vote on
motion,
that.
and then I'll
Let's
make
vote
a
on this
motion
motion.
after you.
Let's
get
vote on the
finished.
motion that's on the floor. Let's vote, please.
Yes.
That passes.
And so, I move that to authorize, city manager and mayor to, submit a letter to HUD authorizing, letting them know that we do want to accept our HUD entitlement. And, go ahead.
Properly moved in second, discussion.
And so, once that is done, can I get a copy of that and the packet, Mr. Donald, so I can
Yes,
submit
ma'am.
it to Congress?
We'll submit it to the full council so that everybody
Okay.
has it.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? That passes. Madam Clerk, we're on.
I think that concludes.
Adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Well,
We need to
no.
go.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
right, oh my
For
God.
personnel,
We need a what?
executive session for personnel.
I'd like to make a motion that we go into,
Well, I think they approved, they authorized us to move forward with all of the grants that are on the agenda. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
What
we
I,
didn't make, that motion didn't say that.
yes,
We
I
only-
did make that motion. I said,
No, it didn't.
Excuse me. Let me recognize one at a time.
It shouldn't be, because there are some that are needing a local match, and you have to agree that you have local match to add. So you can't add all of them and approve all of them, you have to do one by one.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
okay.
So this first one was for the CDBG process, right? And so the other, are they both fire? The next two are fire, so I would ask Chief Broom to describe what we're asking for you, for your consideration.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, can you read what I said?
Yeah, you made a motion, seconded by Councilor Reed, to authorize multiple grants.
That was my motion.
That was the original motion.
Are you saying, Ms. Attorney Walker, are you saying, can you opine to, I made the motion for council to approval to authorize pursue of multiple grants. Are you saying that's not sufficient?
So to do that versus in lieu of this resolution, is that what you're saying?
Are you saying that's not efficient to approve all the grants? Do we have to do one by one?
No, that would be a blanket approval of all the grants.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And I think for clarification, the expenditure time frame for the expenditures are in the next budget year, so we will be earmarking those in the upcoming.
But that was a motion. And it was seconded.
I just wanted to clarify.
And
Right.
it passed.
And I seconded it because I thought that there was to approve all of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, and if we have to go by one, then we need to go one by one. But if
And
it's
you can
not,
approve them collectively.
That's what happened.
That's
That was
what
the
happened.
motion, that's what happened.
right, that's it.
The attorney
make a motion
said.
to adjourn.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Let's vote. Discussion.
Well, discussion was, Mr. Dunn, did we have?
So I believe we have a personnel item that you're going to want to go into executive session for.
Thank you, that's what I was asking, that was what was on the floor.
So you want to go in section only on personnel?
Correct.
Somebody make a motion? Go ahead, Ms. Gunn.
We need to rescind the motion to.
Let's rescind it. Mr. Baker, would you rescind the motion to adjourn?
No.
Okay.
I rescind the, oh, you can, well,
I give you the second.
Let's vote on, we can vote it up and down.
okay.
She seconded it. All right, let's
We
vote
didn't
up and
even
down.
earmark the money.
Listen, the motion is to adjourn. They can vote it up or vote it down. All those in favor of adjourn? Okay, that doesn't pass. Now you got your free will.
I move that we go to an executive session.
Second.
Discussion.
On-
I gotta, y'all gotta say what we going to the executive session for. Go ahead.
The other one is.
Personnel, litigation, and real estate.
No, that's not.
Wait a minute, do you
No.
all have any person?
No, it doesn't matter. He said he wanted to go into executive session on
Mr.
personnel.
Mayor,
The
clarification.
personnel has to be limited to 2 topics that are on the agenda.
Say what now?
So wait a minute, Mayor, for point
That's
of
fine. One
clarification,
of
they
them
were going
is
back
about
and forth.
this. One of them is.
City Manager Donald, Attorney Walker, what do you all need us to do for executive session so I can make the right motion?
Personnel is fine. If you have litigation that relates to these two, you can enhance it to litigation. If it's just personnel, then just personnel.
I move that we go into executive session for personnel only.
All right. Probably move to second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Rao said that there was something that we had not talked about. Have we made motions to give you everything that you need?
I think what she is saying is, I didn't hear you guys
Yes, make a
do a
motion.
local match up to, so to the extent you need local match funds now that exceed that $25,000 threshold, then I would get approval from them at this point.
So for my subject matter expert, is there a requirement for us to have authorization now prior to acceptance of the grant?
So the resolution must state that there's a match.
Yes.
associated.
So
You have to say
even
that.
if it's in the, because we won't receive it,
Correct,
Right.
you still have to say that you're agreeing
So-
that you're having that match available in the time that the money be.
so for which one, so that means that's the CDBG piece. So for that one, what is the match that we are requesting?
So I'm asking for 16,000 on mine, and you're asking how much, Tony? What's your match request?
Match request for mine is
50,000? That's 110.
So 110, so those funds are coming out of,
One is coming out of the new fund that was just given for Blight for me, and then I'm going to.
for Blight, so it's budgeted
Yes,
in
correct.
Blight. For your piece, where are those funds coming from? Is it URA? And so it is, the funds are budgeted, but the number should be up to 125.
Okay. So can we do this?
So I make a
Someone-
motion.
Hold
You have
up,
to rescind the first
hold up,
motion.
hold up. What was our last motion, Mr. Clerk?
Executive session.
Executive session on personnel.
Do I need to?
Who made the motion?
I did.
All right, if you want to rescind that motion and add,
So then you would need a motion to reconsider the approval of
Reconsider.
the resolution.
right. And I'll entertain a motion to reconsider.
I make a motion to reconsider the approval of the
I didn't
resolution.
rescind my motion for executive session yet. Y'all making motions on top of motions.
Properly moved and second to rescind. Discussion.
I move to
Now,
rescind.
let me carry this out.
What discussion?
There is none. He said there is none. Let him finish. Go ahead.
If there's no discussion, I make a motion to amend the resolution up to a total match of $125.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. There's a motion on the floor for us to go into executive session. I can rescind my motion to go into executive session if I'm allowed to do so.
Madam, you are paying that.
Yeah, she can rescind her motion and then you would be able to put another motion on the floor.
Right.
Go right ahead.
I move to rescind my motion to go into executive session for personnel only.
Second,
Properly moved and second. Discussion.
no.
Hearing none. Let's vote. We should go into executive session.
No.
No, that's the rescinded. Okay.
I am so tired right now with
You
y'all.
got it. So y'all just
So, okay,
rescinded.
we just rescinded. Let me go ahead and make another motion, Mr. Khalil.
Now it's the motion to reconsider.
No,
Jesus.
they just reconsidered. I thought they just made a motion to reconsider.
No, they actually got.
They made a motion to
So I'm going to
rescind.
make a motion to amend the resolution for the CDBG grants,
Well, it's to reconsider.
to
our
reconsider
approval.
the resolution for the CDBG grants.
And now you vote on this.
Second,
Properly moved and second. Discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Willis.
So, Attorney Walker, was that my motion I originally made for the city? Was that my motion? I just wanna make sure we don't mess up.
You did not make reference to the resolution at all.
Can I,
Please allow me. This is my area.
Okay, you finish, Ms. Willis.
So so do I have to rescind anything? Am I good? I just wanna make sure.
You made a blanket.
You made a blanket
Blanket
motion
motion.
that did not include the resolution.
Right.
So the motion needs to be made on the resolution with the changes
So do I need to,
and the map.
so what do I need to do to correct that motion on the floor?
To simply add.
So they never voted on the resolution?
Right.
No.
Oh, okay, so anybody can make a motion now to approve the resolution with the changes, with additional changes to also include a local match up to 110,000 as well as ability to pull, 125 as well as ability to also pull funds from the blight fund.
I make a motion to do as stated.
second.
No, you ain't doing nothing. You cite your own motion on this DS.
I thought we already did it.
So repeat what you want to repeat what she said. That's fine, but you're not making a motion.
Whatever y'all want to do. It's silly.
Let me make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead, knock it out.
So I make a motion that we change the whereas to describe that the city can improve, provide for improved community facilities and address slum and blight in the city. And that section 1 be amended to be paid for from URA or contingency funds,
Second,
up to $125,000.
And you also told me some other things. You said to include language that says, provide improved community facilities, and that the city attorney and the city manager shall be authorized to create resolutions required by the application. In addition to the blight fund and the $125,000 match fund up to amount.
Mayor, please allow them to do as stated.
As stated.
Get it right.
second.
Second.
I'm gonna do that, but the motion's gonna come from Ms. Diaz.
Understood, yes, sir. Yes,
Attorneys
sir.
don't make motions.
Yes, sir,
All
understood.
right.
So as stated, that's my motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Properly moved to second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Lord.
That passed.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
Before we do that, can I?
It's not a second yet.
Second.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Discussion, Mr. Reeves.
Well, on this line of since we're here, just to go back, I don't know if we're resorting back, but I do want to have a request, and this is probably not germane to the issue, that we all get tested for.
Absolutely. Second, third, fourth.
And that also too, that as well as that, is that, I know we're doing it for our first responders, but for council staff, particularly for, since we're gonna spend the money to clean all the facilities, all the personnel that's occupying those facilities before they go back in, be tested as well.
Let's discuss that in person.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you, sir. I just want to put that on record, sir.
All right, let's vote to go into executive session.
Are you voting for executive session?
Second.
Okay.
Y'all want to?
That passed, let's go.
Too many folks. I mean, to end executive session.
I second.
I need a motion to reconvene.
We need a motion to reconvene, I'm sorry.
Second.
Properly moved, second, in discussion. Let's vote.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Whether you go adjourn, you can get it out. You want to adjourn what? Executive session? Adjourn the meeting, I'm sorry.
The meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Second.
Probably moved, second, in discussion.
No.
All right, all those in favor? Yeah.
Get some rest, Mayor.
All right.
This is in your original.
Try to hold my breath.